Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why the dismissive avoidant attachment style individual can be really cold, and if this person knows whether or not they're being cold some of the time. So let me go through a few core reasons in here. It's honestly a question I get all the time. We see on comments in the YouTube channel, people actually like ultimately being confused about this topic. And what you want to understand is this person's subconscious personal programming. So on one side of the coin, you have high fear, right? And this is not because the dismissive avoidant is like consciously looking at people and being like, oh, I'm so afraid. But there are negative subconscious associations in relationship to being vulnerable. And so there's a natural fear that's just inherently programmed into this individual. And so their willingness and interest in like being vulnerable and opening up is not very high, right? Instead, their fears around vulnerability and opening up tends to be high. So naturally and normally, because of their programming, they're going to have some fear and they're going to cope with that fear by holding their cards close to their chest. Another part of this is they have low expectations of people because there was a certain sense of emotional neglect in childhood. Even if like physical needs were met, there was just this lack of like talking about emotional things, being emotionally nurtured, emotions being attuned to, cared for, positively encouraged or reinforced. Instead, there's this like feeling of, well, I don't expect anything positive, even if I do open up. Right. So it's this person's programming is not only are they a little afraid, but they also don't think anything good's going to come from opening up and being warm and being themselves really early on into getting to know someone. Combined with that, we have another pillar here that can create some of that feeling of coldness, which is actual painful programming. So not only is there like a lack of positive things, but sometimes there were even negative things. So, in terms of associations, and you have to remember the subconscious mind is like an association making machine. So sometimes what will happen is you'll have a child when they grow up in their upbringing actively being shamed. It's not like they just don't get, it's not just the absence of positive reinforcement when they do open up and share their feelings. It can be the absence of that, but even combined with negative reinforcement, like, oh, don't be a crybaby, stop crying, nobody has time for that, get out of here, like this sort of dismissal and shaming. And dismissive avoidance like tend to really take painfully to shaming. It really highlights this core wound that they carry that says, I am defective. Now, are dismissive avoidance defective? No, absolutely not. But do we have subconscious programs that lead us to believe things about ourselves that are not true? Yes. Just like anxious preoccupieds are often telling the story they're not good enough, but that does not mean they're not good enough. Anxious preoccupieds are amazing. And fearful avoidants feel like, oh my goodness, nobody can be trusted sometimes, but that's not an accurate depiction either. Sure, we have like things we can work on as people, whether we have mistakes or things like that. But a mistake makes it something we can work on as a person. It doesn't mean that we at our core are not enough. We at our core are defective, right? Just like sometimes we'll find that people can make mistakes and we can't trust person A and person B, but maybe person C, D, E, F, G, H, I we could trust, right? So they have this cognitive distortion they carry in the form of like this wound. So they actively often believe that not only is it weak and risky, but nothing good will come if they open up and share. In fact, they may even get shamed or belittled in some form. And so you've got all this programming, right? And how do they cope when they feel afraid, ashamed, have low expectations? Well, they self-soothe, which pulls them more inwardly into themselves. And they've learned to rely on themselves to process their emotions or deal with their feelings, not to rely on anybody outside of them. So it almost takes them like a layer deeper, right? You can see we just kind of like go down the rungs of the ladder into how much somebody will internalize. And so you can see with these like four major pillars of how this person's programmed, that's going to be why they are guarded at the beginning of getting to know someone. And I know as somebody on the other side of that, you may want to like break through it or get them to get to the bottom of it really quickly. But sometimes a person actually needs to take time to like peel back the layers before they can really trust. And they really need time, dismissive avoidance, to build their own form of trust, which is that they can rely on someone that they can share with them, they can open up towards them because of all the programming they have. Now, this stuff can be reprogrammed. This stuff can be reprogrammed through like auto-suggestion, belief reprogramming around the I am defective core wound through actual like exposure work in terms of vulnerability. We've got a whole course that you can check out for free if you are a DA and you want to do a deeper dive. And it's called the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style Reprogramming course. And we talk about exposure reprogramming, we talk about belief reprogramming, and a whole bunch of other forms of reprogramming throughout the school. We even have a course called 21 Ways to Reprogram Your Subconscious Mind that you can check out for free by clicking the link below and entering into the 7-day free trial and just checking everything out and seeing what courses resonate with you. But those are two great ones to start with. But it's really important if you are the DA to, number one, let me answer one other question first, actually. Does this person know? To a degree, but often what I find is dismissive avoidance, sometimes when they are being called, they don't even realize because they're just going into coping. They just go into like, oh, my own internal world. I just need to protect myself, put my walls up. And they may not be consciously aware because they're in that space, right? And if you don't get a lot of emotional modeling in childhood for how to like open up and express, then they're sort of like unknowns, right? It's not like, oh, usually I'm like this, but now I'm shutting down. It's like you sort of have an operating state. And then if you go inward a little bit, you may not notice it too much relative to your operating state. So sometimes this idea that we even can open up, we can share, we can set a boundary, we can communicate a need or ask for something we want from someone is almost like an unknown. And so there may be an absence of really even understanding that fully. So do DAs know they're cold? Sometimes when they're being cold, they do in more extreme cases, but a lot of the time I would say they may not recognize how they come across to someone else to a certain degree. And a lot of people have that question. So I just wanted to dive into that. But if you are the DA, please be gentle to yourself. Like so much of healing and working through this stuff is to recognize, okay, I had some painful programming that I was dealt at an early age. And, it's not my fault. It is my responsibility in my adult life to be able to break through and to do the work. Just like with any other attachment style and any other like wounds or pain points, like we are not at fault for the things that get imprinted upon us, but taking responsibility for those things and reprogramming and working beyond them is literally how we heal and how we get that inner freedom that we need. So hopefully this all makes a lot of sense and answers a lot of questions that you guys have. And thank you so much for being here and for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already to this channel. And I will see you in the next video.